Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris, and this is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC 133, Evans versus Ortiz 2. Let me get some quick thoughts here. Rashad Evans looked really good here. I didn't see any signs of ring rust in this guy. His striking and his takedowns, everything looked really good from here. I was really surprised by how many ground and pound victories we got here. We got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, actually 4 ground and pound victories. And Vitor kind of getting a ground and pound victory, but it was more just like KO. So it was like 4 or 5, depending on what you count. And the rest were decisions, no submissions. A lot of up-and-comers got much-needed victories. Some guys on the prelims, like Mike Brown and whatnot, got some very much-needed victories to stay relevant in the UFC. And, yeah, so let's get right to it. The first fight of the night, Rafael Natal beat Paul Bradley by unanimous decision. There's good takedown defense from Rafael Natal. He used his reach and kicks well. He defended a lot of takedowns in this fight. Good win for him. He definitely needed it. A lot of times when you see a fight card, you'll see that someone, like, people that fought on this card, the winners should fight each other and losers should fight each other. In this case, I think that Costa Filippo versus Rafael Natal actually makes a lot of sense. They're both kind of in that lower tier middleweight. Both up and coming in a way. I mean, Natal's just kind of, it's tough to say. It's tough to say where both of these guys are. I wasn't super impressed with, with both of these guys, but they're still developing guys. Next fight of the night, Mike Brown beat Nam Phan by unanimous decision. Good one for Brown. He really needed this. I mean, the guy was coming off 3 losses in a row. He utilizes wrestling and just beat up Phan in the first round bad. That was like a 10-8 round there. Good on Nam for coming back in the second, but yeah, he just couldn't cinch it in the third. But a good one by Brown. He's definitely someone that's gonna come back. It makes you wonder. It's like you saw like Ronnie Yaya fight, and it's like, and I'm not saying Ronnie Yaya is that bad, but it's like, wow, how did Mike lose to Ronnie Yaya? I mean, he's definitely a lot better. A lot better than his like 3 losses indicate. But yeah, so good one for him. Next fight after that, Johnny Hendricks beat Mike Pierce by unanimous decision. I should also say that I missed 2 picks. So out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I got 9 out of 11. I missed. I picked Jorge Rivera to beat Costa Filippo, and I picked Hallman to beat Ebersol. But I was wrong in those. I got everything else correct. But yeah, Johnny Hendricks beat Mike Pierce by split decision. I think that what really did it for me, what I think really did it for Hendricks in this fight was his use of variety. I mean, the guy with these knees, short upcuts. I'd see him use a jab. So yeah, it's definitely that use of variety. He'd threaten with takedowns a couple times. The fight was actually pretty even though. Pierce got some of his shots in. But I definitely feel that variety was a difference maker. I think that Hendricks needs to step up. It's tough to say. I mean, it's kind of weird because Rick Story beat Hendricks, but Hendricks beat Brenneman, but Brenneman beat Story. It's really tough to say. I mean, like, he could potentially fight like Roy McDonald. There's a lot of these up-and-comers that are going to be fighting soon. Like, the winner of Anthony Johnson versus Charlie Brenneman, Roy McDonald, Johnny Hendricks. They're all, like, kind of around that same level, Some guys are a little farther than others. Just barely, you know what I mean? But, he definitely needs to step up. He could do someone like Roy McDonald, maybe. Maybe someone like Claude Patrick would be kind of interesting. because no one knows who Colin Patrick is, and he's kind of on the same level as like where Mike Pierce is. I was thinking Stun Gun because he's someone that was kind of up there, and despite losing, it's still higher than Pierce, I think. Anyways, but yeah, I'd like to see Hendricks step up. He has his stand-ups. He's getting much more comfortable with his stand-up, and he really does have great wrestling as well. Yeah, next fight of the night, we had Ivan Menjivar beating Nick Pace by unanimous decision. This was a controversial decision. There's definitely an argument that Pace won the first and the third. A lot of people disagreed with the decision. One thing, with Pace, he managed to take Menjivar's back standing, but Menjivar was winning the stand-up, especially in the first, and in the second it was all Menjivar until the last minute. So it makes me wonder. It's like, okay, well, Pace did have the dominant position and almost won, but he only had that position for like a minute and a half to 2 minutes maybe at most. And Menjivar pretty much was winning the stand-up for the rest of the 3 minutes. Like, who do you give that to? One thing that kind of bugged me, because it does happen, is like Menjivar was winning the stand-up in the second. And this is no fault of Joe. This is he's just pointing out some of the stuff I'm judging. It's like Pace got a takedown at the last minute in the second round, and it's like, oh, that takedown could have given it to Pace. It's like, oh my God, that is so stupid, I mean, and it really, what that really shows me is like how much MMA favors the wrestler right now. And I keep going back to that because I really hate that. It's like, oh, he can steal it around. Even though he lost 4 minutes of the round, he can steal it around by getting a takedown and just staying on top. I mean, it didn't happen, but just the fact that it was brought up and it was considered because we've seen stuff similar to that. In the third, Nick Pace managed to knee Menjivar in the eye. Before that, though, Menjivar was getting better to stand up. Once again, is the same idea of like Menjivar would at more time get the better to stand up against Pace, and that's the thing. So I didn't find it too controversial. I picked Menjivar to win, and he did. It was just somewhat controversial, but that's all. And it's tough to say where he's gonna go. He won his last fight against Charlie Valencia, lost against Brad Pickett. 135 is not very deep either. I mean, he can fight some of the new guys that are coming in. There's a couple of those guys. There's maybe Michael McDonald that'd be pretty interesting actually. Michael McDonald versus Ivan Menjivar. Be pretty interesting. Okay, next fight after that, we have Chad Mendes beating Ronnie Yahya by unanimous decision. I mean, this was just Mendes outclassing Yahya. He was better in the stand-up. Yahya couldn't take him down. And when Mendes was on top, Yahya couldn't do anything. I mean, there was just, besides Yahya somehow getting top position on Mendes, I mean, Mendes was just the overall better fighter. I mean, he looks really good too, stand-up. One thing with his stand-up that I noticed is that he throws a lot of ones still, just a jab, just a kick. He was moving laterally though, which I liked. He'd throw a kick, move laterally, out of the way. Obviously, Yahya was charging at him, and as he was charging at him, Mendes would get a takedown. Sometimes he'd just throw him down. It seems like Mendes is in line to fight the winner of Kenny Florian versus Jose Aldo. And, I expect Jose Aldo to win that one. If Aldo wins, it's really interesting because Mendes is definitely a threat. One thing is, even in the stand-up, he still hasn't TKO'd or KO'd anyone. He looks like he's gaining. I guess he needs to learn how to, like I said, he throws a lot of ones. So that makes it really hard for him to knock people out with strikes or finish people with strikes. So I mean, he could wrestle his way to victory against Aldo. The thing with Aldo is he's so good at using range. I mean, he uses those kicks, he uses a jab, he moves a lot. In close quarters, he uses uppercuts and knees. He's hard to take down as it is. So, I mean, stylistically, it looks like Jose Aldo would beat Chad Mendes. But Mendes, I mean, you know, it's just one of those stylistic things. You know, he's like pretty much like the best wrestler in that division. You know, so I'm really curious if Jose Aldo does beat Chad Mendes to see Mendes versus Aldo. If Kenny Florian somehow wins, I expect Chad Mendes to win, similar to like how Sean Shirk or Gray Maynard beat Kenny Florian. One thing I wasn't too fond of with Mendes, kept his hands down a lot. Not good, especially against a sniper like Jose Aldo, who's probably going to exploit a hole like that. I mean, and the thing with Aldo too is he goes for head, body, legs. You know, so you know Mendes, you know, he definitely got to work on that type, his defense standing. Next fight after that. Alexander Gustafsson beat Matt Hamill by TKO in the second round. Really slow start for Gustafsson in the first round. I mean, he's just circling around the cage. He got jabbed a couple times against by Hamill. One thing with Hamill is like he ducks his head bad when he jabs, and like that invited like a counter uppercut at one time, or like more than one time from Gustafsson. One thing with Hamill is like he's such a mid-tier guy. I don't, I see his I think I said in the predictions, Hamill is just, he has decent striking, and he's very strong, and he shoots from way outside. That's the thing. Really interesting that Gustafsson though beat him by TKO. Considering that Rampage wasn't able to finish him at all. I mean, like, he dominated him, but Hamill was definitely fighting a different strategy against Rampage too. Definitely a lot more wrestling, so it's just more like sprawl. For Rampage, it's sprawl, strike, sprawl, strike. Gustafsson really didn't have to worry about that too much. Which left Hamill much more open for strikes standing. Good win by Gustafsson. Definitely an up-and-comer to look out for. He's only lost to Phil Davis, who he does train with now. His length is, for a guy who was so long, he wasn't using his length very well in the first. I mean, he wasn't in it too well. I mean, he's circling a lot, just doing a lot of movement, but he wasn't throwing a lot. But in the second, I'm really glad he turned it up. There's some good fights from Gustafsson versus Vladimir Matyushenko. That makes a lot of sense. Hamill's kind of like pretty much Vladimir Matyushenko. Gustafsson versus Bader, maybe. If they want to give Gustafsson someone good, maybe the loser of Forrest versus Shogun, but that's pretty high. A returning Thiago Silva versus Gustafsson, but I don't know if they really want to bring, I wonder if they want to give Gustafsson a couple more wins before giving him like a top 10 guy. It's really tough to say where you put him right now, because he's beat like Cyril Dubate, James DeHuna, now Matt Hamill. So he beat him like solid mid-tier guys. Louis Kane's fighting Stanislav Nedkov. If Louis Kane ones, Gustafsson versus Louis Kane would be pretty cool as well. So there's some good fights for him for sure. Let's go into the main card. Rory Aries McDonald beat Mike Quick Sampaio in the first round by ground and pound. The guy's a monster. I don't know what to say. This guy, his striking's really good. He uses a jab. He moves very well. He grabbed Paio's leg and just tripped takedown him. Vicious ground and pound, man. I mean, he threw that left to Paio's chin and just swarmed him after that, man. He's also just like a really strong guy too. I don't remember Rory being that big. It's like he grew overnight. I'm not insinuating anything either, because he's still young. You know, he can definitely grow a lot more, or not a lot more, but yeah, that's the thing. He looks. I mean, he's just really well-rounded. Pyle's mainly a BJJ guy. He couldn't do much from his back. He actually got killed. While he was in a spot that he's very well used to. Tough to say where McDonald goes, man. I mean, he killed Nate Diaz. Now Pyle. I mean, I was thinking give him Johnny Hendricks, but seeing how McDonald did against Condit for those first 2 rounds, you kind of got to give him someone way up there. Maybe even give him a Koscheck. The winner of Anthony Johnson versus Charlie Brenneman would be very interesting. Maybe the winner of Jake Ellenberger versus Jake Shields, even, if you want to put him up there. There's something about Rory that's like, for 22 to have the skills that he has, I mean, he's really high up. I mean, he is just really up there, I mean, he's definitely the full package. I mean, yeah, I'm on his bandwagon. I don't know what else to say. I mean, he just shows it, I mean, he's just really well-rounded. He doesn't have a particular base, He's just good everywhere. That's the thing. I mean, he trained MMA so young, so he didn't train one particular, aspect. He trained everything, So, he's not particularly a specialist in any one place. He's just good everywhere, and it's crazy how good this guy's gonna be. So young too. Okay, next fight after that, Costa Filippo beat Jorge Rivero by split decision. This was a fun fight. Rivero was definitely in trouble. He got dropped around the first, if I'm not mistaken, and got pounded. I don't know how Jorge managed to survive. One thing that Filippo was really good is Rivero would lead with the right straight, and Filippo would duck under it and initiate a clinch, or try to even get a takedown. He was really good about that, which makes me think that maybe Rivero should have been working a lot more kicks and maybe work a jab too, because he just kept ducking under that right straight, the lead right straight all the time. Good win from him. He's still improving. He's still like a prospect actually, so he definitely can improve. There was some, I guess, greenness in him and not being able to finish the omoplata. I mean, he kept grabbing his leg, and I mean, I worked this move before. His legs were in the wrong position. He kept he tried to figure four his legs, and then he almost unfigure four'd it. So it wasn't under his knee anymore. And I do it I learned it in a different way, where you kind of have to have your legs kind of away from your feet, away from the guy's head. You have to grab the guy's waist so he doesn't roll forward. But for some reason he was just lying back. It's obvious he didn't really know how to finish this move, which shows. I mean, it shows some greenness. It's also just a really tough move. And also, Rivera was blocking him with his knee as well. But good win for him. I think Filippo versus Natal is a fight that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of lower tier guys. You can give him the winner of Court McGee versus Dongy Yang or something like that too. So I think he should fight more like lower tier guys. Next fight after that, we have Brian Bad Boy Emersall versus beating Brian Superman Hallman by TKO in the first round, by ground and pound. Hallman came in this fight wearing Speedos. It was pretty funny, actually. There was an early scare with Ebersol. He got taken down, he got his back taken, and Hallman had his back for a long time. He was going for. Ebersol managed to get out of it, and then Hallman went for a guillotine, and then he couldn't get that guillotine, so Eversole just went and started throwing a lot of ground and pound. A lot of hammer fists, a lot of elbows. Really good stuff from him. I really like his ground and pound, actually. He postures up. And that was the story with a lot of these guys. Rory McDonald, Brian Eversole, Gustafsson in a sense, because he's just pounding away because he already dropped the guy. I mean, they just postured up and were able to generate power to finish. Which is very unfortunate that guys like Fitch or like Sonnen, a lot of these wrestlers don't want to posture up and throw those fight-ending type strikes. They want to go a little. They want to be more in the safe zone. Very tight with the guy, more pitter patter. Not short. A lot of short elbows. But a lot of these guys, they don't control the head. They don't do a lot of posture control and whatnot. And it's these guys are, the thing with Eversole is like he just postured up and just rained down hammer fists and elbows. And I think a lot more guys could probably finish fights if they wanted to posture up more. I'm mainly just kind of ranting on wrestlers right now. Because a lot of wrestlers just don't do that, and it bugs me. It's like they're so focused on not wanting to lose position that they don't posture up and throw down, very, fight-ending type of ground and pound. As far as where Eversole goes here, it's very, he's a veteran. This is pretty much the best we'll ever see him. It's tough to say because, I couldn't see him beating one of those, wrestlers in the division, maybe if you want to give him Johnny Hendrick or something, or Rory, you can do that. I don't really consider Eversole a guy with, 50 or 60 fights a prospect in any sense, But he is a guy that is hitting his stride at a late age. So it's really tough to say. Do you want to really push this guy up, or have him fight more of the veterans, or do you feed him to one of these up and comers like Rory McDonald, Johnny Hendricks, Brenneman, maybe even Amir Sadala or something, Anthony Johnson. It's really tough to say. I'm curious to see where they'll put him. Okay, in the co-main event tonight, Vitor Belfort beat Yoshihiro Akiyama in the first round. He KO'd the guy. I mean, the punch was kind of weird. It was a left, and I think Akiyama was ducking, and he got hit in the temple, and then Belfort just barraged him and won the fight, and just really, just put him to sleep. I mean, that's really all it comes down to. It was great. It's funny because I see this fight, and the first thing I was thinking is man, how does Anderson beat guys like this? It's very obvious that Vitor is a very good fighter. And same with, I feel this way about GSP sometimes, a lot of times too. It's these guys are such good fighters. How is an Anderson beating a guy like this? This guy looks great, So it's really. It's really crazy that someone like Anderson can KO Belfort. There's some interesting fights for him. I mean, he can fight like Yushin Okami if he loses. Heck, if Okami wins, Belfort Okami would be pretty cool. Maybe I'm guessing the winner of Sonnen versus Stan's gonna be next in line for a title shot. Maybe Vitor versus the winner of Bisping versus Mayhem. That'd be pretty cool too. Vitor versus Lieben. That would be really cool actually. If there's a fight I want to see right now, Vitor Lieben. That'd be really cool. And finally, the main event of the night, we had Rashad Evans beating Tito Ortiz by TKO in the second round. Rashad didn't lose a step. He looked, this guy looked better than ever, man. I love the finishing sequence. Ortiz was on his knees. Rashad kneed him in the solar plex in the second round and finished a ground and pound. Ortiz still hasn't been KO'd or submitted, but he's lost by TKO a lot of times. Evans really blends striking and wrestling really well. I really like that. He's really fast too. He has quick hands. He moves very quickly as well. Very interesting to see him get the winner of Rampage versus Jones. I mean, if it's Rampage, I just think Evans would beat Rampage just with his speed. And I think Evans at this point puts everything together much better than Rampage does at this point. Against Jones is really interesting, but it's one of those things where it's like, before this, because Evans really got to show us what he got. I think that Evans could be a lot more of a threat to Jones than a lot of people would believe. I think Jones would beat Evans. I think Jones definitely has really good takedown defense. He's really long. He's just huge for his weight class, too. And that Greco-Roman background, those elbows. But Jones has to get in top position. So it'd be really interesting if Evans could get top position on Jones. I don't know if it's, seeing the way he blends in everything. I don't know if it'd be impossible or anything like that. But and as far as Tito goes, he took the fight on short notice. He's fought a lot of good. He was game. He actually was striking pretty well. He actually hit Evans with a couple good hits. Even got a takedown. Or kind of. I don't think he completely got him down. But any thoughts of the guy? Being in the top of the division again. It's pretty unlikely. But he was game. He was game. He built a lot of goodwill with the fans too. Post-fight interview, Rashad was the better man. He was very humble in his loss, no excuses. So good for him. He's built a lot of goodwill with fans. You can't help but think he'll get more fights after this. The fans love him. They were cheering for him a lot. Even after he lost. And Rashad Evans, people hate the guy. I still can't pinpoint it either. They don't like him. So that's pretty much it for my UFC 133 post-fight analysis. A lot of it was just ranting, really. But so that's, if you have any comments or anything, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you very much.